Today we're going to talk about the Philips pasta machine. This is a hopper extruder, and how this works is pretty simple. You put all the ingredients in the hopper, then mixes it up. At a certain point, it starts to extrude it through the die. So let's look at the machine itself. On the top is your space for the hopper for the ingredients. And how this works here, these metal turn plate screws come off. This is great that it's metal, much sturdier than some of the other machines I've seen. This is the die. Particularly today we're going to be doing fettuccine. This is the collar to keep the screw. Now this is actually pretty solid metal, which is nice. Some of the other machines, the last machine I reviewed, it had a plastic screw, and this one is a nice sturdy metal one, and this slides out as well to put it in the dishwasher. All the parts you're looking at so far can be put into the dishwasher, which is a great help. So we're going to put that in, we're going to put the collar on, we're going to put the die on. There's a little tab here that fits up with the tab there, push it in. We're going to put this plate on, and you sort of have to push it in a little bit and start to screw the screws in. These don't come off, these handles here. They just float freely until you start to tighten it up, and then you'll see tightening it up, it really pulls it towards the machine. Obviously with the screw mechanism, you're putting a lot of pressure on the die and on the machinery on the inside, so it needs to be pretty tight. And then the lid goes on top. We're not going to put that on quite yet. Let's look at the display. Now, this is really quite good and quite simple. You have two choices. You could do extrude only, or you could do the automatic. And when you do the automatic, you get to choose between the 10.5 ounce or 300 grams, or the 600 grams, 21.0 ounce. So for today, we're going to do a bigger portion. I don't know why you would want to do a smaller portion when pasta could be kept in the refrigerator for a week, when it could be frozen, when it could be dried. So if you're going to go through the effort, and you'll see this is not a lot of effort, why would you want to do a smaller portion? But that being said, over here is our flour. So I like semolina. I've talked about that before. This is #1 semolina, very fine. I'm not necessarily recommending this brand of semolina, but it's the brand I use, and I find it really quite tasty, good texture, and it's easy to work with. So this is a measuring cup that they give you. It is not a standard cup. Actually, I just measured it. It's about 1.5 cups. So if you make this on your own without using this cup, you're going to have to use the instructions on how to use regular standard measurements, whether it's weights, grams, or the cups and pints and that kind of measurement. So we're going to put this in the hopper, and now we're going to put the flour in the hopper. And first, it's really important that you get this just right. So you need to sort of bring it up to the very top. You've done this all before. Your mothers, I'm sure you've seen it do it. Up to the top and just scrape it off. So we've had one of their cups of semolina, one of their cups of regular flour. And then we put the lid on top. And now we're going to choose. Do we want, and this all happens without stopping. So once you get to this point, you really should be ready to go through it. But before I show you that, let me show you something really interesting. Come down here. You'll see that at the bottom, there is this tray that pulls out that has some of the dies. They don't all fit in here, but most of them do. And this little device here. This has mechanism, little metal tab to push out the dried pasta on the fettuccine, to push out the dried pasta on the spaghetti. And this device here is what you use to cut the spaghetti when it's coming, or the fettuccine, whatever you happen to be doing, out of the machine. So it's really handy. The fact that it actually fits in underneath the machine is a really good feature. So up here, we have 1 or 2 cups. We're going to choose 2 cups. It says 15 minutes, and that's actually how long it takes, start to finish, from when the machine starts to go until the last bit of pasta comes out. So here we push press to 2, and start. And you'll see it's starting to go around. Now up here, you'll notice there's a little slot where you pour this mixture in. Now what this is one egg, a tablespoon of olive oil, I use a little bit more, salt, and the rest is water. And you're just pour it in slowly so that it mixes with the flour mixture to get to a crumbly part. I mean, you really sort of have to do this a few times to get a sense of how crumbly the pasta needs to be. It's really easy to make it too soft or too crumbly. So I've done this many times now, so I have a really good sense of what this is. And this measurement cup that I'm using is also not standard to any other measurements. There is a line for 180 milliliters of liquid. I actually put a little bit more and maybe another couple of teaspoons, maybe even a tablespoon more of liquid in, because I found in the past that sometimes it just needs a little bit more. I don't know if the mixture's a little drier than normal or if the humidity makes a difference, but whatever the difference is, I've noticed that it needs sometimes a little bit more liquid. If I don't need it, I'll just, put it in the sink. But now if you can look down inside the machine, you'll see that the pasta's starting to come together. The flour is absorbing the liquids, it's mixing it around. They're getting little crumbles, sort of like on the top of a pie crust when you're doing a cobbler. So keep going, and you'll see the time. It says 13 minutes. At 12 minutes, it'll start to extrude this pasta. So now at the bottom here, you'll see I had it mixed up. Now some of the egg parts come out. It really doesn't matter that it's the little egg left in the bottom. It's okay. Now I have a feeling now that's enough mixing for me. I still have some liquid, some egg mixture on the bottom. I'm not going to put it in because this is pretty much the way it should be. So now we just wait for the pasta to start coming out of the machine. In another minute or so, it'll turn itself off. It'll go the other direction and start to extrude the pasta out of the machine. You'll see little bits like this up here stuck at the top. That eventually get mixed in with the other stuff, so nothing to worry about. If you wanted to, you could actually stop it by just opening the lid. It'll stop. You could just scrape this off and close the lid, and it'll pick up where it left off. It's up to you. It'll wind up being pulled into the rest of the pasta mixture. So we just wait for a few more minutes. I don't know if you could tell, but it's whisper quiet. Here we go. Now if you notice, it's going the other direction, and it's going to start to come out. Of course, when it first starts coming out, it's going to be a little stiff, a little ragged at the end. I usually cut that bit off and save it to the side. And here comes the pasta. This little bit too, I think I'm going to save for the side. Now this is looking a little bit better. So here's the fettuccine. Some machines have a blower underneath. I've checked into that. The blower is only there for a second or two, and it doesn't make that much of a difference. So I would rather not have the blower and have a nice, proper, sturdy machine like this Philips is than have a blower that doesn't seem to be doing too much of anything. Here's the pasta, and I'm just throwing it on the fabric, on the dishcloth to dry. We'll probably have it later tonight for dinner, but if I don't use it for dinner, I can make it, I could put it in the refrigerator. Like I said, I could freeze it, or just let it dry. It's not going to be as perfect pasta as you would normally see if you used a regular pasta machine with the crank and the different dies that you have to keep getting smaller. But for what this machine is, it's pretty damn good. You'll see most of the pasta is pretty smooth on both sides. There's a few pieces here that are a little ragged on the side, but it's really quite a nice machine, and it's really got a strong motor in it. I've used other machines. I've had other machines that are broken because the motor just couldn't handle the pasta making process. So you look inside the machine, you can see that it's still a little crumbly in there. which is the way it should be. And here we go, and this is all happening in less than 10 minutes. Now what I do and what I always do, and I think it's so important because pasta needs to rest, and it obviously doesn't have a chance to rest in this type of machine. So what I do when I make this kind of pasta, even if I'm making it fresh, I'll let it sit on my dishcloth for a half an hour at least. What that does is it allows the moisture that is in the egg mixture to absorb into the pasta. I mean, pasta flour is just tiny little grains of, if you look at it from a microscope, tiny little grains of, they appear to be sand, and they need a little time to absorb the liquid. So if you let it rest for a half an hour, even after it's been made, I think the end result is much better. And here we are, we're all but done. And there's actually very little left in the machine. If you could take a look inside, you'll see it's pretty much done, and we've done that all in less than 10 minutes. So, and you could just turn it off at some point. I'm going to turn it off now because I think it's done. So there you have it, another wonderful machine that I use quite frequently. This and the KitchenAid pasta press and the actual old hand crank, which I have a motor for. That'll be our next video. But thank you for listening. Please give me your feedback. Ask a question at the bottom. And if you don't have a link, if you don't know my first video on the KitchenAid pasta press, I'll put a link to it in the bottom of the video. Thanks. Bye-bye.